We are constantly just buried in advice on how to live longer, right? But what actually works? In this explainer, we're going to cut through all that noise and build a simple, expert-backed blueprint for longevity, a system you can actually use to improve not just how long you live, but how well you live. So let's kick things off with something that should really make you sit up and listen. According to longevity expert Dr. Peter Adia, your cardiorespiratory fitness, which we measure with something called VO2 max, is one of the single best predictors of how long you're going to live. He says a low score is just as bad as smoking. Think about that. This isn't just about being in shape. It's a vital sign for your entire life. So just how high are the stakes here? Well, people who have an elite VO2 max have an 80% lower risk of dying from any cause compared to people at the bottom. The message here is crystal clear. Improving this one number can have an absolutely monumental impact on your longevity. So how do we get there? We're going to break it down into a really clear system. First, we'll look at the big picture, the blueprint, and your role in it. Then we'll build out our system with 3 core pillars: mastering metabolism, building your engine, and fortifying your brain. And finally, we'll see how you can tie it all together into your own personal health system. All right, let's dive in with maybe the most empowering idea of all, the belief that you, yes you, are fundamentally in control of how you age. You know, a lot of us just assume our health is basically written in our genes, but the science on this is pretty clear. Genetics plays a way smaller role than you'd think. It's your lifestyle, your choices about food, movement, sleep, that accounts for 70%, maybe even more of your aging process. The difference we're talking about isn't a year or two. It can be a staggering 14 years. The person in the driver's seat isn't your DNA, it's you. So if you're in control, where do you even start? Well, the foundation of everything is our first pillar: mastering your metabolism. If you get this right, everything else gets easier. But if you get it wrong, everything else kind of suffers. So what is the central problem we're really trying to solve here? The root of so many chronic diseases, from type 2 diabetes all the way to heart disease, can be traced back to one single core issue. And that issue is insulin resistance. Put simply, your body cells, especially your muscle cells, kind of become deaf to the signal of insulin. And that means sugar can't get out of your blood and into the cells where it's supposed to be used for energy. And that causes a whole cascade of problems. Okay, so what causes this? We love to blame sugar or fat, but the real villain here is the combination of refined carbs and saturated fats together. And here's the kicker, the really surprising part. Most of that harmful saturated fat in our blood doesn't even come from the fatty food we eat. It's actually made by our own liver when it gets overloaded with excess carbohydrates. And this just creates a dangerous, vicious cycle. Research from Dr. Ralph DeFronzo uncovered something pretty shocking. High levels of insulin themselves actually cause more insulin resistance. Your body cells, they get overwhelmed by this constant signal, and they basically start to tune it out, creating this feedback loop that just gets worse and worse. And that brings us perfectly to our second pillar, building your physical engine. Because exercise is one of the most powerful tools we have to smash that cycle of insulin resistance and, of course, to boost that all-important VO2 max. So how do you train effectively? Well, check this out. This is the Norwegian 4x4. It's one of the most well-researched protocols for dramatically improving your cardiorespiratory fitness. After a good warm-up, you go hard for 4 minutes, like 85 to 95% of your peak heart rate. Then you recover with 3 minutes of light activity. You just repeat that cycle 4 times. It's tough, for sure, but it is incredibly effective. And the impact of this kind of training, it's profound. I mean, one landmark study took sedentary 50-year-olds and put them on a 2-year exercise program that included this kind of high-intensity work. The result? They literally reversed the structural aging of their hearts by 20 years. Their hearts looked like the hearts of 30-year-olds. It's just a stunning example of the body's ability to rejuvenate itself. But listen, it's not all about these killer workouts. Simple movement has a huge effect on that metabolic pillar we were just talking about. A recent meta-analysis showed that just standing up after a meal lowers that glucose spike. But a light walk, that's the real winner. It delivered the greatest reduction in both glucose and insulin. This is such a simple, powerful habit you can start like today. And that powerful, effective exercise, it doesn't stop at the heart. It leads us directly into our third pillar, fortifying your brain. Because it turns out the health of your body and your mind, they're not just related. They are two sides of the exact same coin. To put it as simply as possible, the same vigorous exercise that makes your heart younger also acts like super fuel for your brain.
It is one of the single most protective things you can possibly do for your cognitive function as you get older.
One of the huge reasons for this is a protein called BDNF. And I want you to think of this stuff as miracle grow for your brain. It helps your brain cells survive, grow new connections, and supports what's called neuroplasticity, which is just your brain's amazing ability to learn and adapt. And this is where our pillars really start to connect and make sense together. How do you boost this critical brain protein? With things we've already talked about. High-intensity interval training is a huge driver. But so are other practices like regular sauna use, getting enough omega-3s, and even the presence of ketones, which your body can make when you're fasting. Okay, let's switch gears for just a second and talk about a powerful supplement for both your muscles and your brain, creatine. For physical performance, the gold standard dose has always been 5 grams a day. It's proven to help build muscle and strength. But that's only half the story, because new research is showing that for your brain, which is a massive energy hog, that dose just doesn't really cut it. To effectively boost creatine levels up in the brain and support your cognitive function, especially when you're under stress, studies are suggesting a higher dose is needed, somewhere around 10 grams a day. Okay, so we've covered our 3 pillars. Now let's zoom out and see how they all come together to form your own personal health system. You know, as Dr. David Liu puts it so well, the goal isn't to find some magic pill. The goal is to build a system, an entire ecosystem for your health. It's about understanding how all these different pieces work together to support the whole you. And this right here is the most important idea to really let sink in. Improving your metabolic health makes your workouts way more effective. Those workouts build your engine and flood your brain with that amazing BDNF. And a healthier brain helps you make better decisions to support your metabolism in the first place. It's not a checklist, it's a virtuous cycle. So, this all leaves us with one final question. You don't have to change everything all at once. Looking at this whole interconnected system, your metabolism, your engine, your brain, what is the one small, powerful change you will commit to making today?